Well, hello there, students. We are about to start our new unit on naming chemical compounds. This is a skill that is vital. If you can't name compounds or go from a formula to a name or a name to a formula, you're not going to be able to succeed really in chemistry. So this is very, very important. As I've said for the last couple of units, very, very conceptual. It takes a lot of practice to master this. There's a few rules, but then applying those rules when everything is mixed together, that's where the struggles always lie. So take your time, practice as much as possible. I will have extra practice sheets. There's a lot of practice already in the packet. So make sure you really are doing that and not just copying it, because if you don't take the time to master this now, the rest of the year is going to be so much more difficult. If you don't believe me, go ask a friend of yours or somebody you know who took the class last year, and they will attest to just how important naming is. You've got to be able to name compounds. Okay, so kind of a little overview of this unit. You're starting this on Wednesday, November 29th, and it's going to take you about 2 weeks. December 12th is when you should be looking to wrap that up. As you flip to the second page in your packet, one thing that is new, I've kind of put in a pacing guide. You guys kept giving me feedback of never knowing, or wanting to know where you're supposed to be and kind of how fast you should be moving. So what I've tried to do is include that in here. So please use it. Please try to stick to it as much as possible. This will hopefully give you some better insight into, managing your time better. Because again, it's something you're going to have to do beyond this class, just in life in general. So this video is specifically 6.1 on chemical formulas. Some of the information that we're going to kind of go over very quickly, probably be a review for you. And probably won't be that difficult. I already realized I didn't see this. Oh, I got to clean that up. Don't worry about it. But it's on chemical formulas, and then the periodic table as well will be 6.2. So a couple quicker videos, and then we'll kind of get into the naming of it. So one thing you will notice is there is no vocab quiz. No vocab quiz, whatever. So a lot of the vocab that you're going to see, or at least some of it, is going to be review, which is good. So that we're going back and continuing to review that and making sure we really know that information. So let's jump in. Excuse me. As of right now, as I'm making this video, there's no baby yet. Sorry about that, but I'll let you guys know. I anticipate being there on Monday of next week, but you'll probably be watching this video after that, so I don't even know why I just said that. All right, let's jump in here. Kind of a quick review of chemical names and chemical formulas, kind of setting up the foundation of where we're going to go once we get into the specific rules. Some things you just need to make sure you know, and you should know these by now because we spent the last couple of units talking about bonding, talking about types of atoms, periodic table, all that kind of stuff. So should kind of go pretty quickly here. Ionic compounds, guys, they are made from ionic bonds. They are known as formula units. So the formula for when you write out a chemical formula for an ionic compound is called a formula unit. It's just a term that lets us know, hey, it's the chemical formula for something like NaCl. That's a formula unit. It specifically means you have an ionic compound. That's the only thing you need to remember with formula units, is that, hey, it's an ionic compound. So if you think back when we did the mole and we did conversions, right, we said, oh, we got this many that many formula units. It's just saying we have that many ionic substances, ionic particles that are in a mole or whatever it is. Where on the flip side, molecules, when you hear that term molecule, it means a covalent bond, and it means you have a molecular formula. So the formula for a molecular compound is called a molecular formula. So something like CO2, that's the molecular formula. It just means it's covalent. So remember, formula units means ionic. Molecular formula just means it's covalent bonding. So it gives us some insight into the type of bonding. So ionic compounds are composed of metals and nonmetals, should be a review, bonded by ionic bonds. Okay, molecules are composed of nonmetals and nonmetals. It can be two or more, so just make sure you remember that. And then they have covalent bonds. Okay, that's from last unit. If you don't remember it, well, go back and make sure you know it. So kind of some sample problems here. We're going to circle. I'm going to highlight the correct answers. CaO2, what type of compound is that? It's an ionic compound. You got a metal and a nonmetal. Number 2, all right, the formula for CaO2 is known as a what? It's a formula unit. So I'm kind of giving you a pause or two just to kind of give you a chance to think about it. Pause the video in between if you want to do it, and you should be able to know these simple questions on your own. CaO2 is bonded by what type of bonds? These are ionic. An oxygen molecule, O2, is a blank. It's a molecule because it's a non-metal bonded to itself, which is in turn a non-metal. O2 is bonded by, now you've got to be able to distinguish, is it polar or is it nonpolar? This is going back to our last unit. If it's the same element, that means it's going to be equal pull, so equal sharing, it's non-polar. Okay, so if you struggle with those 5 questions, you guys need to get some flashcards together to be able to make sure the basics, or else the rest of this unit is going to be very, very difficult. So chemical formulas, they can either be a molecular formula or a formula unit. Again, that just tells you what type of bonding is taking place within the substance. Either way, chemical formula indicates the relative number of each atom in a chemical compound. So it tells us how many atoms we have. Parentheses, okay, parentheses around this thing called a polyatomic ion. Identify it as 1 unit, and any subscripts written next to the parentheses apply to atoms inside the parentheses. So this is something probably not super new because we've looked at it already in terms of when we did the mole. So we're kind of coming full circle, kind of learning about the why behind it, and we will be continuing to use that later on in our next unit, which is on reactions. So number 1 here, butane is a what? That is a molecule because it's all covalent. It's covalent because it's all nonmetals. Now we've got to be able to identify the different pieces. Okay, how many carbon atoms are there? There's 4. How many hydrogen atoms? We've got 10. Okay, so super easy. I would encourage you guys to pause this and kind of go through and try to answer the rest on your own. Then go back and play this and kind of check your work. Aluminum oxide, that is an ionic compound. It has 2 aluminum ions and it has 3 oxide ions. Okay. Calcium chlorate has 1 calcium ion right there. Okay, it's got 2 chlorate ions, ClO3 minus. Now this is a polyatomic. We'll talk about that more in an upcoming video. Now in terms of chlorine atoms, there are 2 chlorine atoms. Remember, we've talked about this already. This subscript distributes in to all the other ones, and it's got 6 oxygen atoms. So if we were to draw this out, it would look something like this. Okay, so we've got Ca2 plus, and then we'd have ClO3 1 minus, and then we'd have ClO3 1 minus as well. So if you count them up, we have 2 chlorines. 3 plus 3 is 6 oxygens. That's kind of how we're getting that. And the last one, magnesium phosphate, has got 3 magnesium ions. It's got 2 phosphate ions, PO4 3 minus. Should be a charge there, or parentheses to keep the charge on the outside. Again, we'll talk more about that in the next upcoming video. We have 2 total phosphorus atoms, and we have a total of 8 oxygen atoms that way. Okay, so that was just a quick review on chemical formulas and kind of where we're going with this. See you next time.